It's good afternoon. I guess not in Hawaii and maybe Alaska, but everybody else. So welcome to the end of season activities for LCs. We did not want to wait to do this till like April 13th or 14th because we figured nobody would show up. But as I was saying earlier, we have 27 days until April 15th, in case you were counting. My name is Lori Evers. I'm the chair of the LC subcommittee, which is a part of the National Leader Development Committee. And we have put together, this is our third of 3 seminars for this season. It's the first year that we've ever done this, and we hope you get a lot out of it. I've also been an LC for 9 years, and this is my first year as a district coordinator. Also joining us today, Amy Smith-Menez, who has recently been appointed as chair of the National Leader Development Committee. We have Marilyn Newman and Karen Miller, who are going to be monitoring our chat. Not sure if Cynthia Richardson is here. Mary Howard's site is open today, and Jeff Rosen. And then we have 2 guest presenters, Katie Pasco and Ken Dowell. So, and at the very end, you get a special guest appearance from Amy presenting. So this is our third and final for this year. We plan to do a lot more of this. This was a bit of an experiment, and we wanted to see how well it was received, and it's been received really well, which is heartening to know that we're headed in the right direction. So one of the things I really am begging you to do, encouraging you to do, is at the end of this session, we have a very brief evaluation. It means a lot to us if you can fill that out. And what we're looking for is, what topics do you want to hear about next year? Because we're going to do a whole lot more. We might do 6, we might do 8 topics, whatever you want. Do we need to do separate topics for first years and more advanced topics for others? And are there other formats? Like, I love the fact that the 10 minutes before this started, we were just chatting with a lot of LCs. You know, having a forum or a way to share ideas as a group. But if there's any ideas that you have to make this better, to add on, to better serve y'all as counselors or LCs, we want to do it. So I really, really appreciate you being here and being part of that. Tell us what you want to cover. One of the debates we had is, should we have been offering this on a Sunday when we know most of the sites are not open? So we know a lot of people are here with us live, over 100 people, which is great. We know there's also going to be a lot of people watching this recording and the PowerPoint down the road. So I am going to do my best to go ahead and start presenting. If you give me just a minute. Here we go. End of tax season activities. Yay, I know. People who don't know me know that this is a big achievement for me. Anything technical. So this is just something I want you to think about as we're kind of setting the tone for the last essentially month, because we're kind of end of March, 1st of April. Appreciating our team and understanding that without our team, we're not going to be able to get anything done. So welcome. Okay, if you have not done so already, please mute your microphones, turn off your cameras, mostly as a bandwidth issue. Please put any questions you have in the chat. Our chat monitors, Karen and Marilyn, will do their best to answer them as we go. So they're going to keep trying to answer as we go. And then at the very end, we will do general questions, but we want to keep this flowing because we know everybody's time is precious right now. Some people might even be breaking away as they're at their site. So we're going to keep the questions at the end. This is being recorded. It's going to be posted on the TaxAid events calendar by March 23rd. And here's the most important thing. The LC guide, which our subcommittee worked really hard on putting together, is it's a living document. We have between 35 and 40 live links on that. So when a document is updated, the link is also updated. So always important to look. There's not a latest version, always click on and download a new version of the LC guide so it has all the latest links. Chapter 7 is pretty much end of tax season activities. So it has all of that information, and anybody who hasn't used the LC guide, please use it because it's a great reference. It's not a novel to read, it's a resource to look at certain times of the year. So most importantly, thank you for taking time out of this incredibly busy time of year to attend this. We could not run tax aid without our LCs. Couldn't run it without any of our volunteers, honestly. Okay, look, who asked about reimbursements? Because we are just jumping right into it. Okay, we're going to talk about reimbursements for non-leaders. Then we're going to talk about reimbursements for leaders. So I want to show you, there's two things you'll see. You could call this an orange, beige, whatever color you want to say. These are the tip sheets. We have tip sheets on pretty much everything we're copying, and the tip sheets are amazing, and they're great, and especially for the items that you do once a year. You enter your metrics once a year. I am not going to memorize how to do that because by next year I will have forgotten. So I'm going to make good use of my time by not memorizing that stuff. We are also going to have our two guest demonstrators giving you demos on how to do some of these things. So what we're doing is we're going to cover all the issues and the PowerPoint. Then we're going to have demonstrations for a lot of these topics, and then we will have questions. So if anybody needs to leave at any point, I just wanted to give you that chronology so you knew when you could kind of leave. Okay, so most volunteers are considered non-leaders. So what this means for your site is everyone who is not a local coordinator or a shift coordinator is a non-leader. Next slide, we'll talk about the leaders. Most volunteers are non-leaders and they're eligible for transportation reimbursement. I had put mileage, but we realized that not everybody drives to their sites. They might take the subway, the bus. We have tolls, we have ferries. In Alaska, some people take planes. It's crazy. But they have to have volunteered for 40 hours. So if you've got somebody working one day a week at your site and they're doing a 4-hour shift, if they're all 10 weeks of tax season, they've got their 40 hours. There's 3 options for claiming the travel reimbursements. One is just no claim, not going to do it, too messy, too much work. Second one is itemized reimbursement, the itemized request. That's where you're listing every day what your costs are, point by point by point. And then the one that we see a lot, and this is what we're going to have the video on, is the flat rate request, which generally is initiated by the LC. So the LC oversees this flat rate mass approval reimbursement form, which there is a video in the portal training lab, in the LMS training. There is a tip sheet, and there is a link on the LC guide. So we're trying to get this, there's 3 or 4 different ways to come to this and find the information that you need. One of the things that a lot of people may not be aware of is every state has, I meant to change that, your state travel cap. They have a dollar amount where that's the limit. And depending on a state, if you have a state you're driving a lot, it's very rural, people are driving, 20, 30 miles to a site, that cap's probably going to be higher. If it's a, more compact state or whatever, that may be a lower thing. But if you do not know what your state travel mileage cap is, please make sure you check with your state coordinator, ask your district coordinator, and if they don't know, they need to ask their state coordinator. If it looks like anybody at your site is going to go over that, you need to get approval. You should get it before the season starts. You should get it soon. So I'm going to give you an example. Karen, who's one of our chat monitors, her site has free parking in a library in a very metro area. Library went under with renovation February 1st, great timing. Parking there's like $7 a day. So we're doing the math. It's going to go over our travel reimbursement amount. So we went ahead and contacted the state to see if this was going to be a problem. So those are the type of things to think about it. Or if you know somebody is driving a long way to their site, those are the type of people you want to reach out to and see what those numbers are going to be. And that's just for somebody who does an itemized reimbursement, not the flat rate. Okay, one more thing. I'm trying to go back. Backspace. Okay, on non-leaders, one of the other things that can make you crazy on reimbursements is for non-leaders, travel reimbursement is a code I. Important because we're going to talk about for leaders, Local coordinators are eligible for reimbursement of mileage/transportation expenses, and it's a code B, which is considered a coordinating expense. All the expenses related to coordinating, which might be going to the annual, the LC meetings that the DC holds 2 or 3 times a year. The supplies and consumables, which is the biggest, is paper, but it can be cartridges if you're ordering your own, pens, pencils, clipboards, all those type of things are a code Z. Anything that is non-mileage needs to have receipts attached. If possible, parking, tolls, definitely, your paper, all your consumables, all of those things, you have to have a receipt attached to that. If you don't know this already, entertainment, alcoholic beverages, site expenses, which is basically rent. You cannot pay rent to be at a site. None of those are refundable, reimbursable. Once a volunteer files an itemized reimbursement request, they cannot claim the flat rate mileage reimbursement. So once you once you put in, I want to get reimbursed for the paper that I bought at Staples, all of you need to be doing itemized mileage or itemized subway or whatever it is for the rest of that season. You're knocked out of doing the flat rate reimbursement. So anybody who's paying any type of out-of-pocket expenses is going to need to do the itemized for the year. And the funding code is local coordinator, federal grants 2425. Again, look at the tip sheet, and the LMS, the training tab that talks about this is really good, and it goes into great detail. The training tab is like 15 minutes, so I don't want to spend 15 minutes right now going through all of that. But I want to make you aware of those. And the most important thing that you'll hopefully be able to refer to is all these codes, because that can be really confusing. Come on. Okay. CE credits for volunteers. CE, continuing education credits for volunteers. So if you have volunteers at your sites who are CPAs, attorneys, enrolled agents, certified financial planners, there might even be some insurance people, if they should be able to get some continuing education credits. It really matters from area to area how the spec, who is your IRS representative for your area, wants this handled. Sometimes the LC, the local coordinator, sends this directly to the spec with the IRS. Sometimes everything is coordinated through the district coordinator. Sometimes it's coordinated through the administrative coordinator. But just make sure that anybody your site who needs these professional credits, you're getting the copy of the 13615. This is the bottom part that you go, oh, we never deal with that. The first half has the signing and that you passed all the tests. But this one's important, and I wish I could blow it up more, but that's beyond my technical ability. But it has the name, and this is stuff that your volunteer is going to fill out. Maybe they already filled it out when they gave you the original 13615, but if not, they put in their name. If they have a PTIN number, that's a professional tax identification number issued by the IRS, they would put that in. They put in the site identification number, and they put, what am I? I'm an enrolled agent, an attorney, a teacher, a CPA, a CFP. And they show what their certification level is and how many hours. Most people get 14 hours of credit, even though we've spent a lot longer. But remember, this is education credits. So it doesn't matter as much how many hours you're spending retraining or whatever. That's just kind of the standard. 18 is if somebody's taking additional things like the military or the international certification, which most people do not do. So hopefully you're aware of that. Okay. Next favorite topic, tax layer. And I'm trying to go fast because I'm trying to be respectful of your time. So that's why we'll answer questions. This is the most important thing. And this is a LC/ERO responsibility. In a lot of situations, the LC is also the electronic return originator, same person. It's really nice when it's two different people, because that also means you have two people kind of checking each other and, double checking, and that second set of eyes is really nice. But before you turn off your Chromebooks and, everything, make sure all of your returns in the current and prior years are accounted for, and you have all your rejects resolved. I mean, on April 14th, 15th, whatever our last day is on the site, we don't let anybody leave, any of our taxpayers leave the site until we've gotten an acceptance of it, the federal return. The state return, they'd be there for another 24 hours, so that won't work. But generally, if the federal return gets accepted, the state return will get accepted. It saves a lot of chasing after people down the road and you having to reopen and find somebody else to open with you to serve that taxpayer who got rejected. Reconcile your activity log with TaxSlayer. If you have people on your activity log and you don't see there's a return on TaxSlayer, what happened to that person? Hopefully your CF is keeping track of that. A lot of times we'll have a note, no show, or we have a note, out of scope, unfortunately. But there's, sometimes they just come in and decide they just have a lot of questions. So we want to make sure that everybody that came in on the activity log is accounted for, either with an explanation or on TaxSlayer. We're going to use the reports in TSO, which is going to be demoed, to find the non-accepted returns. And we can communicate with TaxSlayer. I had to call them a couple weeks ago because I had a really weird return that showed in the taxpayers that it had been accepted, but it didn't show up on my report. Kind of freaked me out. And they said, no, it's good. The system burped or something. But I called and got an immediate question. And so the 800 number is very helpful. You can also email them. At the end of the season, you're going to deactivate all the counselors in TaxSlayer, except for probably 2 people who need to have access in the off season. So sometimes you have to coordinate vacations and everybody who goes to the Maldives for a month or the beach or whatever. So generally this is going to be the local coordinator, maybe a shift coordinator, maybe the ERO, or the district coordinator. And as a new district coordinator, I'm going to make a plea that you leave the district coordinator having access to your site. So if we get an inquiry from the national office in July because the taxpayer got a tax notice or something and my local coordinator is, off somewhere with no cell service or anything else, I can go in and look at that return and generally figure out what's going on with it. So it just helps make things a little bit more efficient. Okay. So there's going to be a lot more on TaxSlayer, a lot more into the weeds. Okay. Turn off the locator. That's another one that, we do the locator twice a year, right? We turn it on, sometime in January. We turn it on, off when we close our site. But the on off, which is essentially a toggle switch, is what makes you discoverable. So if somebody is using their location services on their phone, which is what everybody does, and they're going, who's open? You don't want it to show that you're open when you've already closed for the season. We were talking right before we opened about somebody in Florida that apparently, because of all the disasters in Florida, they're open till April 30th this year. And in her site, they're going, April 15th, we're gone. Go ahead and write that in your locator. When people look at it now, if it says our final day is April 14th, go ahead and put that so people know that in advance. And then be sure that you turn that baby off by April 15th so they're not showing up at your site on April 20th and being upset because you're not open. We don't want them to think you're open in the off season. That just is frustrating. If you close, like my site is a Monday, Wednesday, Saturday site. So our final day is Monday the 14th. Boy, I'm turning that baby off at the end of that day because we don't want people coming to our site on the 15th thinking that we're open. There are a few sites that are open after April 15th. We have a few year-round sites or a few sites that go maybe to the end of the summer or till, June. That's great. So, obviously keep your locator open and realize that you'll have people from all over your state coming to see you. Tip sheets and a demo to come. Chromebooks. Okay. There is a really fun demo. This is the final of our demos. So we're going to talk about preparing your equipment for off-season storage. Sometimes this is done at the district level if you have a technical coordinator. So it's really nice if you have a good technical coordinator. At the end of the season, we have a final wrap-up LC meeting, and we all just hand all of the Chromebooks back to the technical coordinator and go, bye. But if you want to keep Chromebooks, or if your technical coordinator is saying, my basement is not big enough for 80 Chromebooks, and you're keeping the Chromebooks for your site, you're going to need to know how to turn all of these off. If you have any counselors, or sometimes we have a couple instructors that keep their Chromebooks all season, make sure that they understand you've got to bring that Chromebook down. Because one of the things that's important is, if you've noticed, your number with Google Meet, or your Google email is your small little 9-digit volunteer ID number, ty24@aarp.org. That gets wiped the end of May, 1st of June, which means that anything in that email is gone. It's a security thing. We don't want anything that could possibly be taxpayer identifying information or anything done. So when you get back in, whether it be June or September or next January, you're going to be same volunteer ID number, but you're going to be TY25, and you start all over again. So that's why we've got to bring all of this down. Okay, so it's very important that you know who's going to be handling this at the end of the season. Is this on you, or is this on your technical coordinator? Is this on your district coordinator? So a lot of this is about coordination. Okay, so the first thing we do is we make sure that the Chromebook has the most current OS updates, and Amy's going to show that. Generally, every time, one of the things we like about the Chromebooks, every time you open it, it should be updating your OS system. We're going to shut the Chromebook down, we're going to power it back on, and then we're going to remove all of the accounts on the main login by doing that down caret and clicking remove account. So if you're the only person that's used it all season, awesome, you do that. You get to remove yourself. We have sites that we have a lot of volunteers, and there may be 10 or 12 people who have used that Chromebook during the season. You get to delete every one of them. It's not hard. Charge up the Chromebook to at least 80%. So I'll have 3 or 4 plugs going at one time. I've got a system going now to do this. And then, this is the fun part. You're plugging in the charger, you're depressing the refresh and power keys at the same time. So it's like, it involves your elbow almost, and then removing the cable power at the same time while still holding the refresh and power keys. And the demo is going to show exactly where those keys are. Then you want to confirm that your battery is disconnected. Press the power button, make sure it doesn't come back up. And then these are the important things. Store your computers in a cool, dry place. Please do not put them in your attic. They will, you'll fry your Chromebooks. I mean, it's a pretty 50 to 86 degrees. You don't want it really cold. You don't want it really hot. Please don't stack them. Put them end by end by end. So those are the important things. And then, last step, Chromebook inventory. Again, the inventory might be handled by your district coordinator or your technology coordinator, but if you or your volunteers are keeping any Chromebooks after April 15th, come up with just a simple, it literally can be on a legal pad, and you're just writing the asset tag number and the name of the volunteer and where is this Chromebook living? So just so we know where everything is. So, whether it be the technical coordinator for your district or possibly the person for the state, they can account for all the Chromebooks that are assigned to them. We just need to know where all the Chromebooks are. And it's just easier to do it at the most local level than having your poor technical coordinator having to call and, deal with the 11 sites and 100 volunteers or 300 volunteers or whatever you have. So just to keep track of where everything is. Okay, now here's one, program metrics. This is what I hear from my LCs. Why do I have to do this? It's such a pain. This is just stupid. It's not stupid. It's important. And again, we do it once a year. So here's your tip sheet, and there is a demo. The LC is the person who's responsible for reporting all of this in the volunteer portal. Now, here's something I want to go back to. The things we've talked about, program metrics, locator, and reimbursements all must be done by the LC. One of the main themes in our LC guide is to share, and get your shift coordinators and even some of your volunteers to help with all the different tasks you have. These 3 tasks, only you have access to this information and the ability to do these updates. So the LC is responsible for reporting this. You can put it in monthly. I don't see a big advantage of that because it doesn't accrue. So if I put in, I did 3 paper returns the end of February, and then in March I did another 5, I have to actually add them and say I did 8. I just wait until the end of the year and enter them once at the end of the season. What's important about this is these are the numbers that are used to report to the IRS to, say this is why we're here, look at all the people we're serving. And the AARP Foundation is applying to grant money, to fund our program. Those are our 2 sources. So these metrics, and this is important, we have out-of-scope returns, we have declined to file, what we call, the deactivated returns. We have paper returns, we have amended returns, we have prior year returns. Those aren't going to get caught by the IRS. Now, the nice thing is, TaxSlayer actually, most of everything we've done currently does get into our metrics, and that's done automatically, which saves us a ton of time. But all of those type things. And a lot of people, the CF is going to be the person who's keeping track of your metrics a lot of times. I get the, Lori, somebody has a question. I feel like that is my job. I am the shell answer man, and I handle most of the Q&A because that keeps all my tax counselors preparing and not being interrupted. So at the bottom of the activity sheet, it's truly Roman numerals of how many Q&As we have. Also at the activity sheet, we've got the notes of who was out of scope, who declined to file. So I have all that information, and I like to put on the out of scope, why were they out of scope, in case somebody files an incident report, complains, we can explain why we weren't able to do their return. But all of that counts. And this is the reason, so last tax season, TaxAid prepared 1.1 million returns, but we served 1.7 million taxpayers. Now, so some of those are spouses, but we do a lot of single and head of household. So that 1.7 is the spouses of the 1.1 and all the Q&As and the paper returns and the amended returns and all of that. And they do matter. It's really important to our funding and, keeping us in business. So just if anybody's like, I'm not going to mess with it, that's my plea for, please do mess with it. Okay. You thought you were done. We're not done yet. Okay. Here are the things that are important while it's fresh, because you know what's going to happen 9 months from now, you're going to be kumbayaing and going, it was lovely. Everything was wonderful. It was smooth. We're not changing anything because our memories, we just want to remember all the good stuff. Talk to your team while it's fresh. And we do this throughout the season, what worked, what didn't work. And even this season, I've adjusted the number of appointments we take because it was getting a little intense at our site. We changed it, take a few less appointments because, everybody's volunteers. This is still supposed to be fun and not stressful. I want to make sure my volunteers come back next year. What worked, what didn't work? Are there changes you want to implement for next season? And please write it down somewhere and remember where you wrote it down because our memories are short and our memories are selective. Another one that we had this year, we have had at least 10 people come to our site that are out of scope because they're self-employed, generally Uber or Lyft drivers, and they have ACA insurance. And so we finally decided to put on our website and on our kind of cover sheet in bright pink, if you are self-employed and have marketplace insurance, you're out of scope. We can't do your return. So that has helped where we have some people, people that self-select and don't come in, or they'll email us and, get some clarification. So it creates less, we're trying to nip that in the bud so people don't come all the way into our site and then get upset. So, the earlier you can tell somebody they're out of scope, the better. So think about all of those type of things. Think about how you're doing a review. Do you have one or two just designated quality reviewers? Are you doing self-review? Do you have some people that maybe shouldn't be doing returns? Do you have some people that maybe could be doing reviews? Think about, all of those type of things. So also, we always need to be thinking ahead.
Lori,
Yes.
This is Amy, and I'm going to interrupt you because I know you misspoke, but this is going to be recorded, so I'm going to say it correctly for you.
That's why I wanted you. Yes.
You said you might be doing self-review, and I think what you meant was peer-to-peer review, because of course we never do self-review.
We're going to edit that one out. No, please. In fact, I think, isn't that on the IRS exam? Self-review is never allowed. No, it's peer-to-peer review. So yes, thank you, Amy. So it's peer-to-peer review or the designated QR. So also at the same time, I always want you to be thinking ahead, thinking about next year, working on recruiting new shift coordinators and helpers. You can take a lot of the tasks, and this is my favorite part of the LC guide. If you look at Appendix A, we have an Excel spreadsheet that lists, I think it's 53 possible tasks, which I know you go, oh, that's terrible. Some of them are really easy, like order pens, make sure you have enough paper. These are things that can be shared with other people at your site. They don't even have to be the shift coordinators, but you as an LC should not be doing all of these tasks. And the more you get people at your site engaged and not just, I come in, I do taxes and I leave, the more they have an ownership in everything. And I think that's important. Please also ask them to help recruit new volunteers. Our current volunteers are our best source of new volunteers. If you look at all the stats on recruiting, if someone is recruited by a current volunteer, our conversion rate is 50%. In other words, half of the people who apply that are referred actually make it all the way through certification and volunteering, because they already kind of know what to expect because they've talked to you, they've talked to your volunteers, and you've somewhat said, yeah, this is a good person. You've done some, checking on them. So that's going to be better than us ever placing, ads in Facebook and, everything, Nextdoor and everything else that we do is to get new volunteers. And especially when somebody's like, oh my gosh, we need so many volunteers. Don't you have any friends in your book club or at your church or whatever? Try to do that. Talk to your site host, get on their calendar now. I mean, with libraries, it is amazing how far in the future they book up. And you want to absolutely make sure you've got those dates. Now, if you've decided after you talk to your team that we're only open 2 days and we really need to be open 3, you want to try to get that on the book now if you can, so that you've got that already set aside. Talk to your DC, and these become the informal, where somebody's, when I'm doing my therapy sessions every week with some of the LCs, about what are things that can be improved. And we try to talk to all of that. And, talking to each other, the people in your district, the people in your state. And what I'm trying to figure out is how can we do this? I mean, we have 3,600 sites this year. I know we don't have 3,600 LCs because some of you are doing double and triple duty, but still we have a lot of LCs. And how can we share more and more ideas and get people to be, backing you up and giving you, best practices? I learned so much from everybody else's mistakes. It's awesome. Okay. Then we do the more formal feedback, local coordinators. So generally we have a year, as a DC, I have a year-end meeting with my LCs, which is April 17th, because if I do it any later than that, they're already on an airplane somewhere or headed to the beach, and we're never going to get everybody together. And again, it's fresh. So the local coordinators are going to give us feedback. Some of that's going to be the statistics and the metrics and all of that, but a lot of it's still, again, going to be the what worked, what didn't work, and what are we hoping? Because you need to give the district coordinator a little bit about the marching orders. Do we need a new site? Do we have a donut hole where we need to add another site? Do we need more volunteers? Please go out and recruit, all of those kind of things. And then the district coordinators report to their state coordinators. So all of that is really important to give that formal feedback. And then the last thing is there is a survey that goes to every single volunteer in tax aid. And I think we get about a third of a response from about a third of our volunteers, which is still a pretty good response. But please encourage your volunteers to answer. It's not real tricky. It's not hard. And this is the best way for us to know, what's going on. So, gratitude and appreciation. I almost am reluctant to put this. Host an end-of-year celebration, such as pizza or a potluck lunch, although you will not be reimbursed for it. Sorry, because it's considered entertainment and all that. So, I can pay for a pizza or a couple of pizzas, but we have one site that has over 60 volunteers. That's a lot of pizza, for somebody to buy for all their people. But people love bringing, potluck. Everybody just brings something. I mean, our party is just, I think we're going to have a lot of brownies and a lot of chips, but that's okay. Whatever people want to do. Acknowledge volunteers for your milestone years. So in prior years, we call it pre-COVID, BC, before COVID, the district coordinators and local coordinators would be mailed the milestone awards, and then they would have a big ceremony and present them to all of their volunteers. Now, the 5-year, 10-year, 15-year buttons are mailed directly to the volunteers. And so a lot of people don't have those awards. But if you've got somebody hitting a milestone, even if you don't have a pin, acknowledge it, pull them up in front of your whole team and say, look, John just hit his 5 years. Isn't that awesome? And the one that's really great, when you show people at your site, current volunteers, that here's somebody who has 15 years or 20 years, they're going, wow, that could be me. Just to give them some encouragement and everything. Any kind of special recognition. I'm thinking, I only have one new volunteer, so it's easy. I can give her the Rookie of the Year award, which is totally made up. But what the heck? You can do things to just give people recognition. It means a lot. There's an award called the Above and Beyond Award, which you can read about on the portal. But basically, it says, if someone has gone above and beyond what they did. So like Karen Miller, who's our chat person, who spent an entire summer with me virtually, helping rewrite the LC guide. I gave her an Above and Beyond award because that was nowhere in her job description as an LC. She did a whole lot, and we wouldn't have the LC guide like it is if Karen hadn't done that. Handwritten thank you notes. If you have a small site, it's 4 or 5 people, writing, handwritten thank you notes, I still think count a lot, especially for my generation. If not, at least send an email to the whole team at the end of the season, kind of recapping your season. And, we couldn't have done it without you, which we really couldn't have. And just making sure that you're acknowledging what they're doing. During the season, it's always nice to, I try to say thank you at the end of every single, session. But as you're going through and you're saying, I loved how you handled that client that was crying because we had a client who made $50,000 and they had no withholding on a W-2 other than Social Security. And you were pulling out the Kleenex and everything else. And it was so awesome how our volunteer handled that taxpayer. So recognizing somebody in the moment when they do something exceptional, it means a lot to people that you've actually recognized what they're doing and you're, giving them, the feedback. Try to stay in touch during the off season, not every week, but some sites get together once a month for picnics or pizza or whatever, because it kind of is a social life for some people. But just to occasionally, I'll just send people a chatty email saying, hey, I just got back from training in Dallas and here's some of the cool things I learned. So just to send information to people, to send encouragement, because retention is so important. The statistics are The biggest loss of volunteers is at the end of first year. So if we can keep somebody from first year to second year, that goes down by half. If we keep a volunteer into their third year, their average stay is 14 years. So if we can get somebody over that finish line, first we have to get them to certify, then we get them to stay. And, sometimes they go, wow, I just didn't know it was this much. What can you do to accommodate their schedule? What can you do to make them feel better about coming back the next year? It's a lot. I mean, it is a lot. And a lot of sites are open weekends and evenings. So we have volunteers that are not retired. And if somebody's not retired and they have children, I don't know how they do it. It's a lot. So those are some of the things that we're, that we always think about when we're thinking about retention. Thank your site. Make sure you thank your host site. So sometimes it's an individual site, but a lot of times, like a library, you have the individual library, but you have the county system. So I try to write a note both to the librarian who loves us and also to the county library system. I don't know if anybody reads it, but I try. And we try to attach, we serve this many taxpayers, we did this many volunteer hours. Some libraries really care about that because they count our volunteer hours as their volunteer hours, but it's a nice thing to have. A thank you gift is nice, although it is not reimbursed. I love to do those floral, they're the fruit basket bouquets. I can't think of the name of that. Anybody feel free to put that in the chat and we'll talk. But just give somebody, a whole thing of fruit with all the pineapples and everything on a stick. And it seems to be very popular with people. And again, lock in your dates if you haven't done it yet. Okay, you think you're done, but no, not, but wait, there's more. Okay, last thing. Okay, off-season support. And this is really important. LCs are neither required nor expected to provide significant off-season support. Our job is to prepare returns. That job for most of us ends April 15th, unless you live in Florida. But when you're done, you're done. For those of you that have Google Voice, and I'm going to encourage you always to get Google Voice, decide if you're going to check messages during the off season. Maybe you'll check them weekly. You can say, if you have a Google Voice account, say, thank you for calling library. We will not be checking our messages until February 1st of 2026. If you have any questions, and you can give them the AARP 1-800 number. Our say, we'll be checking them weekly. So we check once a week. And we're checking for voicemails, and a lot of our taxpayers communicate with us with text, which is even better. And that way, we don't get many questions, but it's nice to have that because it says taxpayers are encouraged to contact the foundation or their local site if they get a tax notice or they have other issues. So if you have Google Voice, you can a lot of times just answer the question, resolve the problem. If they go to the national office sends it to the state coordinator sends it to the district coordinator, who then sends it to the local coordinator. You get it resolved as your local coordinator, and then you have to send it all the way back up. So there's a whole lot of hands handling that. And in the summer, that takes about a month to resolve. Either way, there's going to be somebody that's going to need to answer a question about that. And again, this is why it is important for your DC to have access to your TSO clients. So maybe you don't even get bothered with it. The typical things you get contacted are notices. They might be penalties. There could be a calculation discrepancy, or people have balances due and they're like, what do I do? So an example is last year, the IRS sent out a lot of 2210 penalties, which is the underpayment of estimated taxes. They had paused those during COVID, but last year they came back with a vengeance. So people that had not paid enough in withholding or estimated taxes to stay out of that penalty were getting penalty notices. So a lot of people were surprised. They're like, well, I owed $1,000, but last year I owed $2,000. Why didn't I get a penalty last year? Why am I getting a penalty? So we explained to them why they're getting that penalty and why it's right, why it's wrong, and walk them through that. Outstanding balances, that's a little beyond our scope. And we can give them some sympathy and everything else. We're going to advise the taxpayer how to address a notice. We don't write the letter for them. We don't correspond. We don't call the IRS on their behalf. We just give them advice. But especially when you get into the outstanding balances, and it's big balances, the best thing to do is to refer the taxpayer to the local low income tax clinic. A lot of you probably don't know much about that, but if you Google low income tax clinic, there is at least one in every state. There's 2 in Virginia. These are partially funded by the IRS, funded with public money, and they're staffed primarily with tax attorneys, and they pick up where we leave off. And it's a great symmetry. We prepare the return. Somebody can't pay it. We send them to the local low income tax clinic to help them work out a payment plan with the IRS. Somebody has an innocent spouse claim. That's way beyond what we're trained to do. We send them to the low income tax clinic. And it happens the other way too. Somebody comes to the low income tax clinic. I haven't filed in 4 years. They send them to us at TaxAid to file those 4 years and get them caught up, and then we send them right back. So it's a really great resource. If you have never used it, it gets you out of feeling responsible for resolving problems that we shouldn't probably be resolving. Okay, so now we have our first guest, who is Katie Pasco, who is a member of NOC, which is the National Operating Committee, which is basically all things related to the portal. God bless her. So I'm going to turn it over to Katie, and I think, can you just record over me, or do I need to stop sharing?
You will need to stop sharing so that I can share my screen.
Okay, I'm going to stop sharing, but I'll never stop talking. Sorry.
I wouldn't expect you to.
Okay.
Okay, so first and foremost, thank you for inviting me to participate in this. We have the Operations Committee has a lot of tip sheets covering everything to do with the portal. If you can't find what you need, please let us know and we will write one for you, because we're constantly reviewing and revising. So the first thing I want to show you is how to find those tip sheets. There are 3 of them that I'm using in this demonstration today, and so you can use these. They're step-by-step guides. Everything I do, I'm going to start from the home page so that we're all starting from the same place. Obviously, with the portal, you can jump around in many ways, but I'm starting from the home page. To get to the tip sheets, you go to the Libraries tab, the one that's now in yellow. Click on that, and depending on how it's sorted, you may have to scroll down to find the orange folder. The orange folder is where all of our tip sheets are stored. They are sorted into different files based on the overall topic. So one of the ones that we're going to talk about today is in site management. Click on that folder, and there's a list of many PDFs that are here. Manage and update program location information is in this file here. This is the one that I'll be working from as part of this demonstration. Please explore, read them. There's so many tips and so many tricks involved in all of these. There's lots and lots of information, and all of it is in some way beneficial to you. So take your time. You know, it's good summer reading. Why not? So that's where you find tip sheets. When you click on one, it opens up in a pop-up. You can actually scroll through this, or you can download it to your machine, however you want to use it. If you click off, just off to the side, it's going to close it automatically. So if you want to reference it, permanently download it to your machine. And you can access the portal from your home computer too. It is not exclusively a Chromebook operation. So using the tip sheets, do you have any questions about that? Okay, then I'm going to move on to where to find the mass approval form for your site if you want to approve flat rate for people who don't want to create a reimbursement request for themselves or are really computer illiterate. However, for whatever reason, this is something you can do for your volunteers to make it easier for them if they're going to take the flat rate. So again, you start from the Home tab. And in this case, you need to go to your contact record. So you go to Contacts, and if you have accessed the portal anytime in the not so recent future, so a few months worth, your name will be listed first. You click on your name, and now you're on your contact record. You can always tell which record you're on by looking in the upper left. It'll tell you the type. So this is my contact record, and my assignments are listed in this box. I have a lot of them. Most people don't have this many. So in my case, I'm going to click on View All so I can see them. But if you only have a few, and they're particularly if they're related only to your site, you want to figure out which one is your local coordinator assignment. That's what we're trying to navigate to. If you can't see this on the way that Google shares, but if you put your cursor on the position name, a tiny pop-up will come up and give you the full name of that assignment. So this first one on the list is a counselor at the site that ends in 0416. So, but I'm going to go to View All. And I want to find a local coordinator assignment. Here's one. This is one of my ad hoc sites. And you click on the AS record that's over on the left. That is your assignment record. The one in the middle is the position record for everybody. So you want to make sure you're clicking on the AS link. When you click on that, it brings you to this screen. It says volunteer assignment in the upper left. And over on the right is where all the action is. So if I were creating a reimbursement for myself, I would use this new reimbursement. But what I'm trying to do is find the mass approval form and then to do the actual approvals. That's all included with this down arrow. And when you hover on it, it says show 3 more actions. The first one is the approval form. You click on that. And that generates a list of the counselors who are at your site that are eligible to get the flat rate. One of the questions in the chat was, what if somebody works at multiple sites? You can only get the flat rate once. You cannot get the flat rate for each site at which you work. Therefore, if a counselor, the LC at a different site that this volunteer is working at has already approved a flat rate, you will not see that name on this list at all. It just won't show up. If that volunteer has previously submitted a reimbursement request as an itemized request, that name will not show up on this list at all. So you will only see the people who are eligible for flat rate when you open this up. And over on the upper right, you can download the form or you can send it straight to a printer. It is critical that you get people to sign this form. We've had too many instances where the LC thought that the person agreed to a flat rate, and then it turns out they really didn't mean that. They misunderstood the concept. So you need to explain it to your counselors. This is a $50 one and done, includes everything, or you itemize. And once they agree, they sign the paper. When you have their signature, then you can go back to do the mass approval. So I'm going to now just close this. I'm going to go back. And so that you can see it again, I'm going to go back to the same thing. You need to find your own contact record. You can do it through the Contacts tab, or you can type your name in and search on your name. Hopefully you're the first one that comes up. But if you have a name that's not unusual, then make sure you choose your name and not somebody else's. Get to the contact record, find the desired assignment, and go to the AS record over on the left. Again, now this time I'm going back to the down arrow, that same down arrow, But the second choice down is mass approval. And when I click mass approval, it's going to bring me to the page where I can actually do actions. I am not going to submit this, but you click on the select button. Your choices are approve now, electing no reimbursement, or place on hold. Place on hold is used if more information is needed, if you're going to do the flat rate, but they need to change their address because they're going to get a check in the mail, which we prefer and advise direct deposit anyway. But generally speaking, you're going to use the approve now. And you click on approve now, and then you click the yellow submit button. And when you click that, this will freeze the volunteer's record, and they will not be able to submit any other reimbursements for this season. They will get the flat rate. The flat rate, once you select that, it locks the account and no other reimbursements can be submitted. So that's for mass reimbursement. Are there any questions?
You might want to check the chat.
Okay, is somebody monitoring the chat, or should I go there?
Katie, Emily has a question about volunteers who decline mileage reimbursement.
If they decline it, then you would select the electing no reimbursement or do nothing at all. If you don't go to their assignment, or if they don't create a reimbursement request themselves, then no reimbursement will be generated. You can lock their account by selecting the electing no reimbursement under the choices when you're on the mass approval page.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
Mass approval sounds like you can do a whole number at one time.
That is correct.
Okay, so you just keep choosing them until you've got everybody that you want.
Yes. You would, what will show up on that list, that I chose an ad hoc site with a few volunteers. But if you have a very busy site with a lot of volunteers, that list will be much longer. Everybody who has not yet done a reimbursement will show up on that list that's assigned to the site, to your site.
Thank you.
I have a question. Is it for a person who has, like, I buy a box of paper from Costco, but now I need to go do another box, but I was going to submit the reimbursement for all the paper that I've had to reimburse, but I can't get mileage as well?
When you itemize your reimbursements, you can put in one line for paper and scan your receipt to attach it. If you have separate trips to Costco to buy the paper, then you would have separate receipts and you would do one line item for each one. And then for your mileage, you create a separate line for each trip that you've made and for your days at your site.
You can't just do one, like a flat rate for the mileage?
No, a flat rate is a flat rate and it includes everything and it locks your account. So if you choose the flat rate as an LC, you would get $80. As a counselor, you get $50. Okay. And so if you're buying supplies, you should itemize.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Katie?
And Katie, this is Amy. Let's not take questions during this, and I'm going to ask everybody to put their questions in the chat. We'll answer what we can today, and anything that we can't get answered in the chat today will be an additional document that will be available when we post all of this, because we do not want this recording to be 3 hours.
Okay. That's fair. All right, so the next one is your site locator. And Lori specifically was talking about your locator comments, but I'm actually going to broaden it a little bit because it's all on the same page. So again, start at the home page, and you need to navigate to the program location record. There are two ways to do that. You can do that by searching for the name of your site, or you can use your SIDN, the site identification number. Either one will get you there. If you have a common name, like for example, today I'm at the Bristol Senior Center, and I searched for that. Well, there are 3 Bristol Senior Centers in the portal in 3 different states, but there are also a lot of churches that use similar names. So you may want to use the SIDN just to narrow it down quicker. I'm going to use my other site and use Bensalem Senior Center for this part of the demo. Type that into the global search box. And when you scroll down to the location section, you find the name of it. It's in Bensalem, Pennsylvania. That's my site. This is the location record. It says location here. You want to get to the program location record, and the portal is very confusing. This is not intuitive. The program location is listed right here on the right in this first box. One of them begins with DS. That's not us. We begin with TA, tax aid. So you click on the program location name, the program location record, which is the link to the left. And here's the whole record right here. This is now the program location record for the Bensalem Senior Center. Scroll down. I've zoomed in, so you'll need to scroll to see everything here. But here's the locator comments. And currently, my appointment book is full, so I've put a notice in there. During the summer, I want to make sure to delete these last 2 sentences, because I don't want to open the season next January saying the appointment book is full. So you want to make a note if you add something like that to delete that. To edit any of these things, at the top of the page is an edit button. If you click the edit button, you get a pop-up in the middle of the screen. And Amy, can you see that pop-up?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So when you click on this, there are all these different fields. Do not ever change the name or the program. If those are wrong, let your state ADS know, let your district coordinators know, because our national staff have to change those. At the end of the season, you want to change open to the public to no. You have the choice of yes. Now it will show, if as yes, it will show up on this AERP site locator. If you change it to no, it's closed. You may want to use no for a nursing home where you never want it to show up on the site locator. So you need to think about how that site is running. There are a lot of options here. Also, in this section, is there how do you make an appointment? For example, can you call the center? Here's a phone number. You can change that number. If you offer other languages, you can select that. What types of services are you providing at this particular site? And you check this off. This is also tied to the security plan. You might need to talk to your district coordinator about your site security plan. This needs to match what the IRS thinks you're doing. And all of these things down here are detailed in the tip sheet. What days are you open? The calendar dates. What are your hours for every day that you're open? You can select the hours. I'm open on Fridays there. All of these things are available on this page. And then you click Save at the bottom to save the changes. But again, all of this is detailed in that tip sheet. I highly recommend using the tip sheets to navigate these records. So that's how you find the site locator, and that's how you change it to off for the season. And the last demo is doing your program metrics at the end of the season, or if you prefer, throughout the season. These are open to you all the time. It's not required that it be done at the end of the season. Most people I have found prefer to do it at the end of the season because you're typing in one number and you just track the total entries and then go in once and do it. But if you're the person that wants to add them every week, that is entirely possible, and there's no prohibitions against that. So again, you need to get now to the site records again. And this time I'm going to just search using the SIDN to show you how that goes. So I type in the number into the global search box. Enter, and you notice it looks very similar because it is the same site. And as it loads, you get to the bottom of the page, and here's the program. And I need to get to the program record. So click on that. And this is a program record. It says program and tax aid. And then below that, you see the details, the region, the split state, the district, the SIDN. The SIDN is unique to each site. And so it's a good way to narrow everything down. As I scroll through this page, on the right-hand side, the third box down is program metrics. And this site's been open for a while. So there's one record for each year. And it tells you the dates. When did it start? All these sites open on October 1st. They all close on September 30th, as far as our reporting is concerned. The PM record, the link on the left, gets you to the page for this year's site metrics. Click on that. And here we are on the site metrics page. And again, you click the edit at the top right, and you have a pop-up in the center of the screen. And you need to scroll down a little bit. We don't change the reporting dates. Those are the same for everybody. This is the section where you need to do your work. These fields here in the center. How many paper returns did you file for the current year? How many paper returns for the prior year? The most important one is the Q&A. For example, 2 weeks ago, I was in my local grocery store, and I overheard a conversation between the bakery manager and the store manager, and I pointed out to the woman that here in Pennsylvania, when she's driving from one store to the other, she can deduct those miles because they're not reimbursing to her. So that's a Q&A for me. I'm going to put that down, that's a service that I provided to the general public, and I'm adding that to the metrics. And so the total that I'm keeping. If you're doing paper returns and you're only, and that's the only thing, local returns, only doing a rebate, not filing any taxes, make sure you put that down under the paper local only. We're seeing fewer amended returns because we can electronically file, but if you're doing a paper amended return, you record that. You don't need to do much with the e-file because if you look down a little bit further, the IRS is recording your e-file data already. It's transmitted to us and stored on the portal for us. So this is for all the e-files, and that's, you don't need to worry about doing that. So that makes these other two fields user-friendly. If you want to record some different numbers, make notes for yourself, you can do that. It's up to you. They're not being used for anything else. And this is where I was talking about saving the numbers till the end. That's what I do. I keep a running total with my site records, and I am at the end of the season, we'll go in and put these numbers in once. Some people like to put them in every week and then just add to the existing number at the end of the day. It's totally up to you and the way you work. You always don't forget to click save when you're finished, or your data will be lost. Okay, so that is program metrics. And I believe that is it for my demos.
Thanks, Katie.
Mm-hmm.
There are a fair number of questions in the chat, and we are trying to get to those as we go. The ones we don't get to, as I said, will be on the other thing. Lori.
Yes. So
You-
now I
you
get to
passing this?
introduce Ken Dowell, who is with NTSC, National Technology and Security Committee. And he is going to be talking about TSO, kind of the end of the season and the reports and things you need to look at. So, Ken, you ready to go?
I am here, and
Cool.
I will be up shortly.
Perfect. The end is near,
Try
guys.
this.
We're almost
There we
done.
go.
This is really important. Thanks, Ken.
All right. Well, it's a pleasure to be here. I'm Ken Dell from Michigan. I'm also a member of the NTSC. So I've been with you before, and I'll reference that as a matter of fact, but let's get started. Two major areas I want to talk about: deactivating volunteers, and then some strategies and some aids that are in TaxSlayer for identifying missing in action returns and just reconciling everything you've done during the year. So, on the topic of deactivation, why do we do this? Well, it's very explicit in the policy and procedures. User accounts must be deactivated at the end of each site's tax season. And as had been referenced a few times earlier in this session, it's recommended that each site have one or two, or really I think two or more, but a very limited set of accounts kept open to be able to handle off-season inquiries primarily. And it is the LC or the TCS in your split state that is responsible for enforcing this policy. This was billed as a demonstration, not really a live demonstration, because I will be getting into some personally identifiable information. So, and I thought this would be a good reference that will be posted, I'm sure, with the other materials and the link to the recording. So you will have access to all this as you need. But let's jump into how do you deactivate. And I've outlined here the my crib sheet as to how to get there. So starting point is you need to be logged into an account that has administrative accesses. So an LC account typically, or ERO account should have what's seen on the left as the main screen within TaxSlayer. During the tax season, we're focused on starting new returns and client search quite a bit. And then if I'm at a site that does dedicated quality reviews, so I spend some time on the review return screen to know what work needs to be done. So most of your action during the season is the first few options, but the next one down on the screen that I've highlighted in red is configuration. A lot of that is done for preparation, and that's what Allegra Hamer and myself discussed at the last webinar in January, I believe it was. A little different focus this time. Even though it's called prepare setup, that's where we need to go now to deactivate. So once you hit configuration, you'll see the configuration menu. Prepare setup gets you to what you're seeing on the right. And this particular screenshot is the default when you go in there, that it's focused on and actually displays the active accounts at this point in time. So I've highlighted the active, and you can also see on the red highlight on the lower right, this is just showing the top part of the list, but you'll have the list of all the people all the accounts that are open at this point in time. And really the deactivation is quite simple. You just go down the list and unclick the box in the of the line of the account that you want to deactivate, and it magically disappears. So you just go down that list and you're done. If you flip, let me go back. Yeah, so in the lower right-hand corner where it says active highlighted, you can flip that. You've got the choice to look at either all the inactive, which you would primarily go to at the beginning of the season when you want to add people to your and make them active to actually do tax preparation. But there is also an option called show all, and it will show you all the accounts that are associated with your site. And in the lower right-hand corner, you'll see I've highlighted the active and archive columns. In this particular example, I've got 3 names showing and only 1 is active at this time. Wanted to point out though, and I'll talk just a little bit more on that in a minute, but there is also a concept called archiving. And you can either see the archive lists by hitting the button at the upper right, or if you're showing all, you can see it interspersed with the full list. And by the way, this is you can manage the sorting by clicking on the header of any column. So if you wanted to look at the list of just the active, you can click the active column and it'll put the active at the top. If you wanted to do it by username or preparer name, you can click those columns and get it sorted that way too. So you can reconcile that with any other records you would have in the area that you're wanting to work with. So I've talked about active and inactive. That's pretty straightforward. By the way, if you inadvertently set someone to inactive, it's very easy to toggle them back to active. You just find them in the inactive list and click the box and they're magically active again. Archive, though, is a little different. It's really a third categorization, and it's recommended to be used for counselors or really volunteers that you don't expect back in the next season. Again, it's not, if you do classify someone in the archive area, don't worry. If they do have a change of heart over the summer that said, oh, it really wasn't all that bad, or I'm really anxious to get back to it, you can easily reinstate them into an active role. One caution, though, that I've seen examples where people, and again, there's a lot of different methods and strategies on creating unique text layer IDs. Some areas use initials of the volunteers. My particular area, when text layer was initially set up, we came up with a 4 or 5 letter abbreviation for our site, and then just sequential numbers. But we also had, instead of numbers for some of the leaders, we would have I'm Southfield, so we had SFLD LC for the local coordinator, SFLD ERO for the ERO position. And it might be tempting to continue that, but what we found is people do come and go, and you might be tempted to recycle the SFLD ERO to the new person that takes over that role. Well, it's recommended that you don't reuse them. So we've gone to a method of going ERO 1, 2, 3, and 4 just to keep the names unique, but also specify the position. And the reason for that, by the way, is just really for historical preservation. If the preparer name is kept in the records for each individual return of who was involved with the preparation of a return. So you want to keep it unique so that you know which ERO did the actual filing, and if the question came up 2 or 3 years later. So recommendation is do not reuse them, just keep it unique. Just to keep track of what's going on, let me go back a little bit. Like I said, there are some other tools. What I've showed you so far is the live and active tools for managing active and inactive. It doesn't necessarily print very well, so you do have some options to go to some of the canned reports. So again, you can go to the main page of your admin account, and instead of using the configuration, there is another major function of reports. I'll be talking about reports in a few minutes anyway, but in the reports, there is a category called Other Data Reports, and buried under there is a report called Username Report. So I've got a sample of that on the right, and this is a handy tool, and the data is downloadable, and you can bring it into a spreadsheet to manage it locally and to create reports. But this report does have a lot of information, including the historical archived information. So in the sample I selected, you can see that the 4 records that are showing, 2 of them are archived, 1 is inactive and the other active. And again, you can sort by that column if you wanted to look at just the inactive as a group or active or whatever. This does have the name of the person actually assigned to that account, their role, and email address, again, for historical purposes. So that's the key points I wanted to bring up on deactivating volunteers and managing the retired volunteers. So if we could, let's switch to some helpful strategies on actually managing the report or the returns that are handled at your site, and make sure you've got the right tools going to look for outliers. Now, a lot of this, and I as I was asked to look at this topic, I realized we've talked about some of this before in the last seminar. So these slides are from January, slightly tweaked, but the resources available in this area, I do know the NLDC, the December 18th presentation, I believe, is still out there. And the reports that are talking about were covered in that. I also list here as a reference that we did have ERO training in January, and the subject was of that video, and the following Q&A was to give some advice and talk about the resources available and methodologies to keep track of all the outliers that we prepared during the season. So the ERO training in particular, I've outlined on the right how you can find that. It is available on any AARP managed Chromebook. There's always the standard tax aid links always on the bookmark bar. If you click on that, there's a technology folder, and everything technology now is available through that, and multiple paths to get there. So the right-hand portion of that table is, or of the pull down associated with technology, is that we do have a table of contents if you want to see a listing of the different resources we have available by category. The third option down, though, is I find I use it quite a bit, and you might want to look at it also. It's actually a direct link to the shared drive that has all the materials that NTSC creates and manages. It's read-only, but you can search and download the files directly. And in there, if you go to the shared file, there is a folder called ERO folder, which has all the slides and all the materials from the January 25th training that we held on this subject. So just again, a few highlights, and these are covered in the references I just gave you, but I find a very helpful standard report in TaxSlayer is the management report. If you click on that, you can actually get into the detail, which you can specify a date or date range, and look at all the activity for your site with a lot of detail, including create date for the return, the acceptance date by the federal government, by IRS. You can also, if your state has state returns, then there are sections on documenting the status with regard to the state, whether it's approved or been rejected or has any issues. So it's a very handy report. You do have to get into, it's helpful to have it downloaded so that you can manage it with a spreadsheet for searching and filtering the data to help you focus on what you're looking for. There are also canned reports. As you can see on the left of this, there's a whole section on the federal transmission reports, state transmission reports, and then you can actually customize some of the options in the other data report area. So management reports, highly recommended. A little more detail on the federal and state transmissions. What you see on the left here is the different names of the reports that were created but not transmitted at the federal level, those that were rejected, and a separate listing of the federal non-accepted returns. And similarly, if you've got state returns, you've got the non-accepted and the not transmitted. So this does let you download information, and you can then compare that with the local management tools that were recommended and supported in that January training that hopefully you're all using and having success to keep track of all your returns. The rejected returns example that I've taken a screenshot on the right shows you the level of detail that is reported on any rejected return. As I say in the lower right hand, I find it easier to download the information and use Excel or Google Sheets to analyze it. I am including now a snapshot of the state returns not transmitted. This happens to be for my site from last year's information, and I did hide the detailed information, but you can see I had a number of complete that were not transmitted, and I do go over this in detail at the end of the season to see why, and most of the complete were paper filed because of issues with acceptance. And then we do have a few failed, in this case 3 that were failed and were actually deactivated. I think I know a couple of them where the taxpayer did not like the results and just said, I don't file that, I'll deal with it later. So that was referenced earlier, and I see it all the time, and I suspect you all do too. So just a quick recap. Most of the information you need for managing returns is available and has been talked about and documented through the December 18th enrichment session and the ERO training, which is referenced and actually housed on NTSC. So with that, I think I've covered what I wanted to say on deactivating volunteers and strategies to keep track of the exceptions in our very active tax lives. So with that, I'll turn it back over to our host, Lori, or whoever wants to chime in next with Q&A.
Perfect. Okay, so you stop sharing and I'll start sharing.
All right.
And
there you go.
we'll see how that handoff goes.
All right.
Oh, yay. Okay. Last presentation with our very, very important Amy, preparing Chromebooks for storage. Whoop, messed that one up. There it is.
If you see it, we do not.
So it's not. So Amy, do you want to try to do that one?
Yep, I got you.
Okay. I will stop sharing. Yeah, it's popping up YouTube.
Of the tax season. It's based on document C10 from NTSC. You can find that document by looking in the technology library. Go to tax aid links.
May
Committee
want to turn up the
libraries,
volume for everybody.
Technology library, equipment, Chromebooks. Or you can look in the LC guide section 7.5 and click the link. In order to work this, the first thing you have to do is sign into the Chromebook, and then you're going to make sure it has the most current operating system. Go down to the time, click your settings, and then go down to About Chrome OS. Shows now that I'm in version whatever this is. I'm going to click check for updates. It's checking. My Chromebook is up to date, so that means we're ready to go. The next step is to log off, and in this case that means sign out. When I sign out, you can see that I'm still there. So the next thing I have to do is remove any accounts that are on here. This one has one, there may be more than one. For each one, you click the caret, hit remove account again. So now the accounts are removed from the Chromebook. The next thing you need to do is make sure that your Chromebook is charged to at least 80%. So it has the charger in there now. And you can see from my battery indicator that I'm in good shape. So it is at least 80% full and I can go on to the next thing. This is the trickiest bit if you aren't a piano player with super long fingers, because to put the Chromebook into storage mode, you need to hit the power button and the refresh button simultaneously and then unplug this. So here we go. The way I found that I can do it is if I have my hand looped around the power key like this, I can hit the power, I can hit refresh and unplug. And then it's ready to store. You can shut it down. Do not stack them. Follow the instructions on C10 and you can store your Chromebook.
Wasn't that wonderful? Yay, Amy.
Wow.
Yeah, I was just blown away by that. Okay, so
Is that high quality video?
worth every penny we paid